Hello. Oh, wait. Hello, my name is Anthony Coleman. I am a criminal justice major. This is for criminal procedure module 3, specifically the module 3 discussion forum. Sorry about the noise in the background. If you can hear it, I live on a highway, so it's kind of not avoidable. Anyway, this is going to be for the Module 3 discussion forum. I'm going to be discussing the cases of Terry versus Ohio and Miranda versus Arizona. I compiled some information for you to be able, because it is a lot of information to go over, so I'm just going to get started and perch this right here. I'm recording on my cell phone. First, I'm going to start off with Miranda versus Arizona. Now, in this case, in 1966 in Arizona, Ernesto Miranda was arrested, and he was not properly read his rights. Right to remain silent, the right to have an appointed attorney if you can't afford one, the right to have an attorney, and that anything that can be said against. I'm looking at the camera, sorry. And that anything that you say can and will be used against you in court. Now, this case in particular is significant because we all know of the Miranda rights. If you've ever watched Madea Goes to Jail, funny enough, that's actually used as a loophole to how she gets free from being put to jail, which I might have to fact check, but I'm not sure if you could actually use that in a real life court of law, but I'll have to look it up one day. But anyway, it is standard and it's a requirement to read someone their rights if they are arrested. It's imperative that you do because it serves as information for them and part of the legal proceedings of an arrest and possible, I can't think of the word. I'm sorry. Prosecution. There we go, I believe. Now the reason this was, significant is because the Supreme Court in a 5-4 decision ruled that his amendment rights were violated. His 5th and 6th Amendment rights. There we go. Wow, I remember more this than I thought. Anyway, the Supreme Court ruled that his 5th and 6th Amendment rights were violated. And this was in part also because his confession was used against him. Yeah. In terms of impact on the criminal justice field, it helped standardize law procedure with officers having to read an accused their Miranda rights when they are arrested. It also helped to protect against self-incrimination. It strengthened the 5th Amendment by preventing coercive interrogations and false confessions and such. So you could see why it would be influential, considering we still use it to this day and it's decades later. Now, in Terry versus Ohio, this is the case I know less about, so I likely will be looking more towards my screen for this. In Terry versus Ohio, a police officer observed suspicious behavior from 3 men, including John Terry, and conducted a quick pat-down search. The officer found a concealed weapon. Terry argued this violated his 4th Amendment right against unreasonable searches and seizures. The Supreme Court, however, ruled 8-1 that the officer's actions were reasonable. Now, that's a bit of background for you. Now, in this established the stop and frisk rule, allowing officers to briefly detain and conduct searches on suspicious individuals if they have reasonable suspicion that the person is involved in any criminal activity and could possibly be armed. Now, the reason this is significant is that obviously we still use this to this day. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not used to really doing something like this. Now, this is significant in its impact because it redefined police authority in part because the ruling gave police more flexibility to act on suspicion before a crime is committed, marking a significant shift in proactive policing, which could really be interpreted as, now if someone has reasonable suspicion, we now have a definitive way of seeing if that person were to have any weapon on them, such as like a concealed weapon like a gun or a knife, especially considering the prolific amounts of weapons that are readily and easily available in today's world. It's a useful thing to have. Now, It also introduced this reasonable suspicion standard, which is still very evident today. If you are a law enforcement officer and you believe someone has reasonable suspicion, it is your duty, your responsibility to do things like a search to make sure that person is not concealing something or could be a possibly dangerous individual. The overall importance of both of these cases is the fact that they both change something in the criminal justice field that we still use today. The Miranda rights are very important considering the fact that they give exposition to someone who is accused, and the stop and frisk rule is given to give protection in part to people around you, civilians, because without it, there could be potentially dangerous individuals walking the streets. Now, my overall view is, frankly, I do agree. I think they're very useful. Miranda rights especially. To me, there aren't very many drawbacks to the Miranda rights. However, with the stop and frisk rule, I do believe there are possible drawbacks in terms of racial motivation. Obviously, we, as people who study criminal procedure, can't ignore the fact that racial profiling does exist. It's one of the biggest prominent issues with policing in our country. And with that, you have to consider the fact that simply some will consider others to be so sorry about that. You will have to consider that some law enforcement officers do carry prejudice, unfortunately, and will consider people of certain races, colors, ethnicities as even just appearing so as dangerous individuals simply because of that. And I believe that proper education and determination in places such as hiring and training are necessities in order to make sure the stop and frisk rule is used responsibly. And I think that is all I have to say. Well, also I have to say that both these cases are profound in the fact that Miranda v. Arizona emphasizes individual amendment rights in terms of being accused, while the stop and frisk rule helps to protect the rights of police officers to be able to do their job effectively and protect innocent civilians. And I think that's all I have to say on the issue, so hopefully this is good.